Hello and welcome to Tom and Mitch talk about the VCT. It's going to be called something like that, but maybe we'll come up with a slightly better name in the weeks to come. Obviously, we've had
I
our
hope
first
so.
week of VCT EMEA, and Mitch, you're still happy with all of your predictions from last week?
Oh, you know what? RNG can hit us all at times. There's no way to
RNG, yeah.
predict the weather correctly, so much less the results of 10 individuals on a server. But, various obstacles, ups and downs, henceforths and so what's. We have to be realistic about our expectations here, Tom. Any team can take a loss. It's about the next week, and how hard you can get hit, as a wise man once said.
Okay. Just random quotes from Mitch. Oh, well, I guess we can get into what is going to be last week, and then we'll lean a little bit
Hmm.
more into what's going to happen in the next week, or what we predict, which is normally wildly wrong, especially considering we both said FPX were going to finish top of this group. They've not got
True.
off to the greatest start in the world, but do you know what? I think we should just start with the very first game of the week, or actually no, it's the second game of the week. But I want to stick with Group A because I remember a man famously saying that he doesn't think Ascend are making it out of the group, and that Oglu will be out in third in the group. Um, well, they played each other, Mitch, and it's not looking
Close
great
bout. Close bout was a close bout. Let's be brutally honest here.
on
Look,
Icebox.
Icebox, I believe was a mispick. It was a misinput that came through. And what happened happened. It is what it is. But when it came to split, OT up against Ascend, everyone knows Ascend's going to top the group. Best team in it.
Oh my
So
god.
realistically, I was just trying to set some good expectations for Oglu, and I think they've met them by coming up against Ascend, doing so much damage, man. That's what it's all about. Give them 2 weeks, give them 3 weeks, and they'll be top of the crop. My
You
boy Hype,
realize
I
if
believe.
you give them that many weeks, they could
Shh.
already be out,
That's
right?
my out. That's my out, right? I need to
Okay.
see them in 3 or 4 weeks, and then Hype will
three or
have
four,
them
3 or 4 or 5, maybe
top
6 weeks,
top
maybe in
level weeks.
relegation.
Give it 2 months. Masters 3, or Masters 1 next year. I think
Mm.
very, very good chance. Yeah, things are looking good
Why the
at a
thing
minimum.
that I'll be honest, I was a little bit disappointed with from the other side of things was the attack on Split from Ascend. I didn't like the comp. Like they had no, they had one flash. It was the paranoia out of Omen, and it almost just relied solely on Zeke getting entry kills and CNED having some pop off rounds. Defense, as we sort of said during
Mhm.
the cast, was absolutely fine, but I almost do feel like at least on that map, Oglu kind of lost it because it was those last few rounds. Like they had a fantastic half. What was it? You could even see it was 8-1 on the scoreboard, and then they let the last three go, and that was sort
Mhm.
of the way in on the other side. Icebox, well, they got beaten out by Cena playing Reyna, and Zeke again just playing phenomenally well. But I guess we do kind of have to look at the individuals. You went very heavy into Hype having an amazing uh, addition to this squad. I'll be honest with you, he was by far the worst
Didn't have a good
player in
game.
the
Didn't
server.
have a good game. Now, listen, Hype did not have a good game. That
No.
is all that can be said about that one. I fully believe he'll bounce back from that. Like, all jokes aside, I want to say it plainly. Hype is a fantastic player, and I'm certain he's kicking himself over his performance that day. But something that I hope will improve with time. I know that
Hmm.
I've seen what this guy can do, and it's much better than what we saw. Looking at his end though, interesting what you were saying as well, because we saw the success rate of that Omen flash and how heavily Ascend relied on it. Like it,
Yeah.
it had, but Starzo walked out with 13 assists. This is a guy that went 20 to 13, so he wasn't leaving much for people to clean up. But it was those flash entries for someone like Zeke or CNED to take the space on the back of it. But yeah, sure, it can be relied on for engagements, but like you said, it's only the one, and when it doesn't connect, now you're kind of left stranded looking for something else, and there's a lot of complications that come with it. I think we saw some rounds that fell to that on a sense side, but there's definitely other excuses for them coming out of that one. I think most glaringly the fact that they have made huge changes, and this is a team that, again, like a lot of teams here, do genuinely need a little bit more time, a few more officials under their belt, which is a shame when really it's do or die coming into this. But at least securing their spot for next
Hmm.
season, I think, is something that Ascend will do for sure.
Yeah.
Oglu, on the other hand, with Focus's performance, I'm no longer certain. Focus would be
Yeah, like
nice.
just before we move, I want to touch quickly on the fact that like I think both Vac and Monster had really good debuts for the squad. Like they didn't look out of
Absolutely.
place at all. I think both players individually seem to be very strong, and I think Vac just fitting in for different roles for the team is going to be super useful because that's sort of what when we looked at this roster as a whole, it's like you've removed your controller and your sentinel, and you're bringing in, okay, you brought in a sentinel, but you did not bring in a controller. So the fact that we've seen sort of Starzo switch up a little bit, Monster picking up the Viper, they didn't look bad at all. But yeah, I think it's only right now that we do move on to some of the other teams within the group. Before, I guess we can go straight to G2 Focus then, because that was a game where I think most people, including us, really did expect G2 to just almost walk that, but just
Roll
because
it. Yeah.
Focus are new,
Mhm.
and they really didn't. Like that was probably the closest series, even though it was a 2-0. Like the fact that, well, actually no, the Navi BBL series was definitely closer with an 18-16 win, but like
Mhm.
neither map was dominant from G2, and I think across the board, okay, your boy Lewis had a couple of quieter maps, but or one quieter map, but realistically, I think the whole team actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think realistically, looking at Focus's performance coming in, or looking at the expectations, let's start there.
Yes.
This roster, look, it has Yugi on it, so that's maybe like a sign that okay, they've got a good player, but you never know. Maybe that's situational. There was a spot open. He's like, oh yeah, let's jump in, and it just worked out. The other players on this roster aren't players that I'm familiar with at all coming into VCT. I was looking at like expecting to see at least two names there, right? That I'm like, I instantly know who that is. And Yugi,
Yeah.
I know him from a different game. So it's like I don't know how well this team is going to do.
Well,
And on
I've now
paper,
heard
that means they get
15 times that your boy
slapped.
Lewis played with Average Jonas, which, if anything,
Did
makes
he?
me think less of
I
him.
think
So, you
I think that's where I
know.
know him from actually, because the name is very familiar and the fact that he's Welsh. I'm pretty sure it was the Twitch event that Jonas talks about. But yeah, no, the rest of the team completely unknown to me realistically coming in. And I think that for these guys to deliver this kind of performance, it is up to them next week. Their game is going to be against Ascend, right? So
Yeah,
that's not
good
exactly
luck.
the easiest. But if they can even put up a show against Ascend like they did here, then they're a seriously good team. Because right now, maybe we can look at G2 having some weaknesses, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if they were stumbling necessarily. They looked to be in decent form, and
Yeah.
Focus really dealt them some blows. But I think they need that extra series to really legitimize them. I would question, we can't really expect that much of them against Ascend. They've come in looking decently good. FPX have kind of stumbled a little bit, though. Their next week's match, maybe they could do some damage there. It's definitely a team to keep an eye on for now.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if they just manage to beat OG, like that's enough to remain. And I think for a team
Exactly.
just coming in, that's fine. Like you're not
Buy some
expecting
time.
Focus to qualify into the playoffs. Like they have the toughest group. It's not going to be easy no matter what. But yeah, no, they really impressed me. I think as well, the thing I enjoyed wasn't the fact that you just had Vong popping off or Yugi was just incredible. It was they look really well structured. Like trading was very
Mhm.
effective. Their utility looked solid. Like it wasn't like just one player popping off and doing the damage, and then you're like, oh, that guy's good, and he'll probably move into another team. I'm like, no, this is a core that actually looks quite impressive. So yeah, solid
You
stuff
have to
from
be.
them.
Well, just to say, like, when you're a team that comes in and is saying, "Hey, we're
Mm,
gonna start out by playing G2 on Fracture," like, and they picked Fracture, right? So you've got to be very structured to be able to play that. I mean, it's
yes.
something that even if it's in your protocols that you have, in your reactions, your setups with teammates, like this is a map that if you leave one blind spot, you can lose a round instantly off the back of that. So it's really tough to play for a new team, I think, against someone as tenured as G2 who thrive on chaos. So I was really impressed with them picking that one up and then doing so damn well, pushing G2 to overtime. It was sick.
Well, there's only one match left in this group, and I feel like it was the banger game. Map one, I was gobsmacked. I'll be honest. Like we go into Fracture, it's one that FPX have looked okay on in the past. I wouldn't have said they're amazing at it, but like Alfire debut map, 26-8 was actually just destroying them. Like it wasn't even fair in most cases. We also saw actually from a lot of players at the moment a move away from Jet. So Durka now playing the Sentinel, which I will also be interested to see if that continues when the new patch update comes in, because he does lose a trap, but ultimately it's just a quasi-duelist, which seems to be the case for the majority. But we also had Angel trying out Yoru. And I'll be honest, there's only been one man. Well, actually, no, there was one map where I think it was Draken tried Yoru on Haven. That was enjoyable. It never worked again. And the only
Yeah.
other person I've enjoyed seeing it was Forsaken. And even that didn't work one of the 2 times he tried it. So, Angels Yoru, I'd be surprised if we see it again, but they looked a little bit lost, and also just seeing Artis again in a much more supportive role, really, it didn't tickle my fancy, if I'm honest.
Yeah, this is something that, I spoke with Emil about it, and he said that, uh, not inside information, but from his perspective, this is a team, and I think looking at, obviously Navi as well, draw the same conclusions with Meg. They're really heavily impacted by the current situation going on with the Prax, with
Mm,
even just like he was making the point that as a player right now, to be so heavily affected by these situations and then be expected to turn up to work and be at 100% mentally when your emotions are all over the place. It's not really possible. Obviously, someone like Angel, sure, tenured as hell. Like this guy's gonna get on with it better than anyone,
yeah.
but uh it's definitely something to consider for FPX. They've gone through some rough times recently, and to see them come out looking a little shaky on map one, especially, I was really worried that this was going to be like a snowball effect, right? They were just going to look flat, and then we'd really start to worry about the form that we'd last seen them into here. But that bounce back was there once they started to look
Yeah.
a little bit more unfamiliar turf, let's say.
Yeah, no, it was one hell of a bounce back. I think as well we saw the sort of the 1v1 of Fade. It really didn't go great for, well, actually Enzo had an alright performance, but it just didn't go great
Wait, wait.
overall. I think it's one of the worst performances we've ever seen from Durka, which was, it's sort of
Yeah,
gobsmacking. To see the man down on 4 kills was just a shock. But I also kind of think that was more of like an FPX masterclass. Like, I don't want to sit there
sure.
and just take things away, because I think even Mini was tweeting afterwards just saying like, we learned a lot today. And it's like, yeah, that's going to happen sometimes when you're up against an Angel team. And yeah, I don't think there's a massive amount to talk about in that map in general, because it was just a slaughter and there was no real momentum for Fnatic throughout.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it, right? They're flat from the start.
Chewy
So
disagrees. Chewy
well,
actually thinks that
they had a
Fnatic
bit of
should have won.
no. What he's saying is they were all bark but no bite when it
Oh,
came to
of
this
course.
map. So that's and you know what? I got to agree with him. The guys got it, hit the nail on the head. Ascent, they came in looking a little lost, but some of the good signs were Enzo coming out looking fantastic. I mean, goddamn, he always looks fantastic. But look, what I mean is on
He's
the
the only
server
one
playing
who won,
Fade.
isn't he? Of the 3 players you highlighted?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
But just good to know you won't rub salt in the wounds, Tom. That's always good to have that
The
support.
funny thing is, I
Uh,
like all 3 of the players a lot, but I have to do it just because you severely
yeah,
overhyped them going
yeah.
into last week. Like, to the point where you
I
said that
disagree.
Hype was
I
going to be
disagree.
the player that makes them
Hearsay.
qualify. Well,
Hearsay.
no, we have literal footage, so I don't think
No,
it's
I'm not sure.
hearsay.
That wasn't submitted in Discovery. What I'll say is that statements were made last week. I stand by them,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Okay.
But I admit there was a bump in the road, a hiccup. Hearsay. It's like a Titanic, right? Good ship, pretty solid all around. If it hadn't hit that iceberg, it would have been fine. It had two sister ships. They also both sunk, but far later. They were pretty good for a long
It's the
time.
worst
So
analogy
what I'm
ever.
saying is, in this case, I was hoping for one of the sister ships, the Titanic. Maybe it'd sink later. All rosters do, but that at least for a bit there'd be some plain sailing. We got the first edition, but everyone's on their lifeboats. They're out of here. They're on a sister ship now. Plain sailing week 2 forward. I'm telling you.
Okay, so we've got past the Mitchman waffle. We're going to move straight into the next group just before we get lost at sea with the weird analogies that he's coming out with. BBL. This was a game that we actually casted. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, after map 1, I already thought this series was over. Like, watching
Yeah.
Navi seemingly have, I wouldn't say it was an easy game, but like, I'm watching Cloud get a 6K and Dinks also just play a fantastic game of Valorant on Ascent, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, you've picked a strong map for yourself. You're looking fantastic individually. You didn't even really need your star jet to actually pop off. Like you're looking at SSK 1-1 in opening duels, so it's like it almost seemed like he was not much of a factor at all. But then we got to map 2, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
this is where, well, we sort of collectively lost our minds. Hype also betrayed you in the fact that they did then go and choose Icebox as well in the next series after we casted
Yeah.
however many rounds this is. And yeah, I feel like this is where we saw what I would call the mistakes of Navi, because at least in this map, although like if we get to the last, BBL were by far the better team on Fracture. This map here, Navi, I think I can think of the top of my head like 6 errors that were just like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? How have you managed to lose this round? How has this slipped away? And okay, sure, a lot of that came off Cutie getting 44 kills, but like, it was a bit much for me.
Yeah, I think one of the things to look at when it came to this was that Navi were not only one map up, they came into this 7-2. Yeah,
Yeah,
7-2. Like we thought this game was over halfway through Icebox. Even
yep.
like bouncing into the second half, we're like, okay, Navi win pistol. They lose third round, they win fourth, they win fifth. We're like, all right, guys, throwing it in here. GG's boys, all over. 2 rounds. All they need is 2 rounds. One win. Motherfuckers have no money. Everything's plain sailing, you know? But
Yeah.
they couldn't get that win. BBL held on tight. And that was one of the most impressive comebacks we've had. If this was at a bigger level, this kind of timeline that we have on the screen, you don't get that very often. A team completely swinging back in. I suppose if it was to happen anywhere, Icebox, sure. But you would expect it to be Icebox attack side where they
Well,
come back in, right? Not
I think
defense
also,
necessarily.
like even at the beginning of the game, we were
Wild.
looking at what? So Cutie got 23 kills in the first half. You had AIM DLL, who he ended on 30 frags. In the first half, he got 6. Like, it was one of the like most mental comebacks in terms of just player form. But also, it just seemed like Cutie in a lot of the early rounds were just getting exit frags. So it wasn't even like a lot of the kills were actually mattering too much until the sort of economy. And then we got to Fracture. And this Fracture performance from BBL, I don't want to say that Navi were mentally checked out, but when you lose the first half 10-2 and the only round you won was the last round and the opponent's bonus round, that is a terrible half of a map. And a lot of it just came down to Kushner just running in, and if that didn't work, Aslan clutched it, and we were just kind of sat there like, I don't know what to do at this point. It was so dumb. Like most of these rounds as well, you have to realize were utterly clean. Like a few deaths. Aslan finished the first half 19-5. Like it was just grotesque. I will even say to the point, I think about 8 rounds in, it stopped being enjoyable, and I was just like, okay, this is already over.
So in total, there were 19 rounds played, right? And this will give you an example of what we're talking about. Uh of those 19 rounds, there were 9 rounds where a player on BBL got either a 3K or there was one 4K. 9 rounds. We're not even touching
Yeah.
2K rounds. We're talking 3K. So like you basically one player wins the round, just mows down the enemy team. 9 of the 19 were 3K plus rounds. This was not, oh, they pushed, they got control of the site, and then they lost in the post plants. This was motherfuckers went A main. One guy in A main went, all right, bang, bang, bang. Just was taking them down. Like it was incredible looking at some of these rounds from BBL. Like the team from map 1 to map 3, the difference was glaring. It was unreal.
The worst thing as well is if you look at like the opening kill stats, it was actually won by Navi on this map, which yeah, it's kind of mind blowing. It just wasn't a good map for them, and I think that ultimately, it's one where I actually feel pretty confident for BBL because I think they looked really good on it. Whether they can go on to win against any of the other teams in the group, maybe versus Big, could be an interesting matchup. But I guess first things first, we should actually go through the game with Big, which it wasn't particularly close on either map. Like they got 12 rounds
Yeah.
total across the two. I won't lie, I wasn't particularly impressed with this new squad. I think that like Liquid looked all right. But I don't think they were like the mind-blowing, like rolling teams Liquid. I just
No.
think they played okay. You had Scream's first outing as a Raze main, which wasn't something I necessarily expected to see, but was still welcomed. And again, they even had some role swaps coming in there, like Soulcast, like playing a little bit of controller, which looked pretty good. You also have him pick up a Fade, which, I'll be honest, as an agent actually makes a lot of sense. Like, he really liked his Sova and his Sky, and now you've almost combined the two and given him an agent. Like, I feel like it's almost made for him.
Yeah, and actually we've had a lot of discussion recently about this. Sky's always been fantastic for getting through Viper walls. Well, actually, people have found Fade a lot better because she's not just gonna flash the person behind it.
Yeah.
She's gonna like reveal them. It's an insta kill. And how long do they have to react? You throw it right behind them, let it drop immediately if it's already at a low angle
Well,
as well.
even
Oh,
the Prowler as well. It just
the
like
Prowler,
it
same thing.
latches the
Exactly.
second it goes through. Like it's the second because that's when you play, you can actually just do that. Like the second you see a screen, just put a Prowler
Yep.
through it. If they're on the other
Pop it,
side,
run
it's
through.
got them, and they're completely blind on the other side. So it's definitely a strong agent. I don't know if it's like game breaking like we've seen some other agents coming into the game, but I think it has a pretty good place. My main focus though with this match is actually big because I think
Mhm.
that I don't obviously it's a first game versus a very strong individually based team like Liquid, so you're not going to out aim them in pretty much any scenario.
Yeah.
And that's the worry I have for this team because I don't think structurally or like in terms of calling, they're like a god team, especially now that they've lost God B. And even in terms of their roles, like you've got people like I quite liked Aslan playing controller. Okay, he played it once, but then you had like the bring in of Omen. You also had their composition that they attempted on this map, which was kind of weird when you see Icebox with both teams playing an Omen, but hey, I guess that's something. And then you also just have, I believe they were playing a Sageless comp as well on the attack of Icebox, which it can work, but I feel like you have to be so in sync as a team, and they weren't.
Yeah, I think that's it really. A lot of changes made, leadership changes as well. Not having God B, you need a whole new
Well,
game
yeah,
plan, even if you try to
Lucka did
follow.
do it in the end. Like, because we were told initially it would be Musashi, and then on the day they basically went, actually no, Lucka's doing it now, and I was like, oh, you see, you've changed at the last minute
That's
as
why.
well.
That's why I wasn't taking Musashi was doing it. I thought Looker's gonna have a
It makes
hand in
more
it, but
sense.
but even that shows how much is changing, how quickly things are changing.
Yeah,
That within a few days, the primary IGL were told, "Oh, now it's Looker doing it," because they are trying new things. This is a brand new team against a well-versed group of tier one professional aimers who've been playing together for a long time and proven themselves at an
yeah,
international level. They got out aimed. They got ruined. That's I think expected. For me, Big's objectives here, it's not to beat the top three teams in the group. It's to find those weak links, like we said before. It's to really hone in on, a mech or a Navi who aren't performing. I thought it would be a BBL in there, but they've definitely proven themselves off the bat. But after the way Group B is shaped up, I feel pretty content saying that, right now, because I believe Mac will, again, smooth into things as it goes
they
on.
always do.
They do exactly, and current situation and all the moving countries potentially, all the sort of stress they're under right now. It's got to be bleeding in. For me, Navi and Big, those are the teams who are now fighting for survival, seeking out those wins, or they're going to be looking at the bottom of the group. And it's interesting contrasting it then with Group A, where I thought things would be relatively set, but FPX are now in the mix. They're in the danger zone with
Exactly.
the way they're looking.
Well, yeah, I think that's the Fnatic effect of always, but we do have one last game to touch on first, which
Hmm.
I think this was actually the team that again impressed me the most, which was Guild. And it's exactly the same as the early start of last season, where they just looked unbelievable. Like but like Ascent they looked good. I think me and Jonas were joking all the way through the watch party, just like, now this is where Mech bring it back. And now this is where Mech bring it back. Because they always did on the defensive side. But on
Mhm.
Haven especially, they were just god tier. Like Trex and Leo looked
Yeah.
like they were the two best players in the entire league, and that's saying something because we have some real talent coming through. Like you have the likes of Durka, you have the mech players like Nats and Chronicle. We know how good they are, but in that matchup, they could do no wrong. And I think in terms of just utility and structure, they were by far the best team I saw this week. Like the amount of setups they had,
Mhm.
I think again, just joking about how every duel Defo take was either had to be a 1v1 or it was like he was blind or stun or whatever because there was so much utility no matter where he went. And that was just so enjoyable to watch because I feel like it's almost like the Cold Menta special. Like he's not going to be your top fragger. He's not going to be the guy running the show. He will build you a damn good team though.
Yeah, I think that's very much it. When it comes to this roster of Guild, they are clinical. They are a well-oiled machine, very much like what we've seen from the Guild X roster. It's just a fantastic it seems environment for teams to play under in
Yeah.
Guild, and Trex especially has just bloomed into a player of his own. I know you said Leo, but the consistency of Trex and as well as that, it's sort of the fact that this guy's been on the outer edge of the community's view for a while,
Yeah.
right? I feel like he's one of those players that he would be on a long list of, oh, he might be all right if he's in a good
Well,
team,
he's
but
always in the mixed
you never
teams,
really
wasn't
know.
he?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you hear whispers, oh, this guy's actually pretty good. This guy's underrated, but he has come out and really shown that like if he keeps up this kind of performance, he's gonna have a whole fandom of his own trexing behind him. You know, trekking. It was a
Yeah,
yeah,
nice one. Nice. Are you
followers,
proud of that?
trackers. It's I'm not. If I could go back, I wouldn't have said it, but I took a pause. I had to go through with it. It is what it is.
No, I definitely agree. And the fact that him and Safe are now like switching between Duelist and Sentinel when they are
That's
both
interesting.
fantastic at each role, it's gonna be so hard to
They're
read
fresh.
because they could just change things up on the fly whenever they want. So yeah, really impressed by them. Again, I don't even want to say that I don't think Mech turned up to the races. I think they just played against a team that sort of had good enough setups that their sort of cheeky plays just didn't work. Like you think of the amount of times where Shados would get a triple spray down or Nats would do something nasty. It's like most of the time those guys were only able to get trades, and that's all you really need to do to beat Mech, which is, I'll be honest, one of the toughest things to do in the world. But
Yeah.
it's very, very good from Guild's side. And going forward, again, they look like they're the favorite in the group, but that did happen last time as well.
Yeah, it's not about I guess Mac not showing up on the day or players being flat or
Yeah,
anything like that. No doubt they gave it their all in the moment. I guess the thing is how much have has the past couple months affected
for sure.
the practice outside, right? How much has it affected the mentality, the mood of the team, all those sort of things. You can only imagine uh and I mean, you don't have to imagine it. Look at their performance there. Look at the performance that we've seen from them at the last international event. You know,
Mm.
completely different, completely
They're
different. So
also a
I still have
LAN
hope for
team
these
in
guys.
general as
Oh
well.
yeah,
So
for
if
sure.
they qualify, like I imagine things will change drastically. Like I still stand by the fact that like it's probably not even backed up by statistics because Defo is still good
Hmm.
online. But I just feel a different vibe from Defo when he's on LAN. It's just like he can
Yeah.
win you any round or hit any entry that you need. Now I want
Mhm.
to just because we've gone on a bit, Mitch. We've gone on. It's been 28 minutes,
Yeah.
so let's go
Jeez.
through just quickly the games that we've got coming up because there are some pretty, like I would say in terms of like a pinnacle matchup. I feel like FPX G2 is probably the one that sits in my mind. Although I'm sure for you it's Oglu versus Fnatic because
Of course.
it has to
It's
be because it's two of your boys playing against
game
each
of the
other.
week. No, no, no. Let's be realistic. I think coming in, it's FPXG2, and it's in an ideal world, your Navi mech would be amazing. I think that there's a lot going on. These teams, I'm not sure that that's going to be the barn burner that it should, but Focus Ascent now
That
comes
could be
in as
interesting.
a
Yeah.
real game to keep an eye on. This is Focus trying to establish themselves as a genuine team to keep an eye on, as a top contender, not just a team who's trying to survive the groups, but who's trying to dominate it. And they have a shot. And if they do well against Ascend, we can at least look at them getting in the back door of that top three, or at least surviving the VCT.
Well, yeah, I think that for obviously, if G2 managed to beat FPX, you've also got the fact that FPX will be 0-2 and G2 will be 2-0. Even though the game was close, it doesn't matter. Like, that's all that G2 are really going to care
Yeah.
about. I actually think that Liquid versus BBL could be closer than people think. Because I think that although BBL definitely weren't like mind-blowingly good, I think that boost of a win is going to give them a lot of confidence going forward. And I think that especially Aslan and Kushner playing together, if they're on form, I think that they can disrupt Liquid a little bit, especially because Liquid are changing a lot. I genuinely
Yeah.
just think that the way Big played made it very, very easy. Like, if you're going to go for a looser style in comparison to what you had before, Liquid are going to rip you apart. So I definitely also think that CIS matchup of Mech Navi, I genuinely think Guild are going to bang Big. I'd be gobsmacked. Like, unless Guild just go back to the team that played Supermassive Blaze, where it was just the messiest I've ever seen them play. I think they're going to absolutely obliterate them. I think Ascend should win against Focus, and unfortunately, I think Fnatic, if you've still got Alfire popping off as well as he did, I'm very scared for Oglu already.
Yeah, Fnatic are top in the group with him playing like that. I think that's all glue going down to them, but it'll be an interesting battle still. I'm with you on everything pretty much. I think the FPX G2 is probably going to be the best game there, the most exciting for us, but
Yeah.
that again relies on FPX not showing that same weak performance. We got to see them battle back, and then like I said, hopefully that Ascend Focus game really brings us something meaty. I'm rooting for Focus now. Emil was saying again that like he loves the underdog story. I think everybody does, right?
Everyone
And
does, yeah.
now Focus, they're not only underdogs, they're underdogs that do have a bite. They can actually, tango. Now let's see if they've got a full, I don't know, fucking dance recital, whatever. See
What,
how long they can
what's
tango
the
for.
analogies?
I don't know. I'm trying a new thing. All right, it's not working. Maybe we'll scrap it. Maybe we won't. Who knows?
I'll just edit those bit out of the video. All right. So okay, I want to hear this though, because you said Fnatic is top in the group. You've got Fnatic versus Oglu. You've got two of your boys playing against each other. Is it clear cut? Like, do you think just Fnatic it's done, or do you genuinely think that Oglu actually stand a chance in that match? Because you've said they're going to qualify third, but you're also saying that they're going to go 0-2, which means they have to win every other game.
Listen, I think I made it rather clear in the moment that was driven heavily by bias and by pride.
Oh, okay.
Not by. I think I gave you an alternative solution as well. Going by that alternative solution, I really do think that coming into this game, Oglu have a chance, but that relies on way too many things going wrong for Fnatic that for now I have no reason to believe will go wrong. So I gotta look at Fnatic taking that series. Maybe they drop a map, but to be honest, I see that as a 2-0. With Alphair especially, I have no reason to believe he's not going to turn up and ruin like that. And I don't know many players that can contend with someone like him.
Yeah, maybe if Malzy has like a life game again, like
Or
the
Hype.
guy's unreal at times, but I feel like it
Or
needs to
Hype.
be almost based off
Hype.
the structure. Yeah, Hype's a good player. I don't think he's gonna be the difference maker. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll hold my hands up. We'll come back next week.
We'll see.
And we'll see if you were correct on that one. But yeah, I think we basically covered everything. So again, if this is something that people enjoy, make sure to like the video, as all those YouTube people do. But also, more importantly, I want to see what people think in the comments. Like, are there any teams that you think are going to surprise? Is there anything else you'd like us to talk about? Like, lean into more of what we've seen from Fade so far. I think that would be easier as things go on. What would you like people, like a question, Mitch? What would you like people to answer this week? I'm putting you on the spot.
What would I want people to ask?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
what like
question. This is
you
like
got to put out a
quiz.
question, and people
We'll
in the
give you
comments, if they got it this
next
far,
week's episode.
they're gonna what like something to do with agents, anything you like. What would you like people to ask you?
All right, okay. what's your favorite ability in Valorant? Let us know.
Okay.
There, I'll ask them a question.
There we go. Okay. I might just edit this out, but either way,
I
thank
think
you very
should.
much for watching. We're going to probably be back next week if this gets at least, 40 likes. That's what we're going for. The big boy numbers.
Yeah, smash that like button.
Smash that button.
13 likes.
Yeah. All right. Where did it here? Bye.